Okay, so I'm recording this session as of now, just so everybody knows it's being recorded. We ask that you mute your microphones during the presentation. You can, sorry. So, sorry, we ask that you mute your microphones during the presentation just so there's not a dog barking or a doorbell or whatever chaos is going on. The lecture will be about 80 minutes, as I understand, and then we'll leave some time for questions. So we're happy for you to join us. Um, like I said, it's recorded, so we're going to put it online afterwards. And I think that's everything I need to say logistics wise. It's my great pleasure to introduce Francesco Pinosa, a wonderful friend, even more wonderful colleague. I'll let him introduce himself with his accolades and take it away.
So, hello everyone. I really have to thank Nick for this amazing opportunity. It was a long time. I mean, probably this is my first conference, for sure via Zoom and for sure with US. I thank you, all of you, that you came to listen to my small research that I did, which is just the result of many years of practical trying on the field and the last years of also bibliographic, let's say, research on the sources, on many different sources, I would say. I just introduced me shortly because you can see who is this guy, of course. I'm first of all, I'm a cellist. I studied in Italy, in Austria, modern cello, and after that, I graduated in University Mozarteum here in Salzburg in Baroque cello. And I also accomplished the postgraduate degree also in Baroque cello here in Salzburg. On the side, I also have a degree in humanistics, bachelor degree in humanistic studies that I accomplished in Italy in Trieste. In focusing in the philology of the New Latin languages. So just to be sure, all Latin, Spanish, French, but also the smallest languages like Catalan, or the language which is spoken in my region, which is Friulan. I will, at this point, just begin with the presentation. So I will try to share. Voila. Let's see if we have this. Oh, okay, everything is working. I'm really happy. I will beg you for your mercy. Of course, English is my third language, so and it's while I'm not speaking really fluently anymore. So just please tell me if there is something that you don't understand, if I am inventing words and so on. Please just be a little bit patient. So, art of rosin making. Let's do a small pre-talk. We don't know a lot because we don't have many sources. Actually, we have the illusion that we know a lot about the past, but the horrible truth is that the more we go back in time, the less we know. Even for many things that we are just accepting like real, we have just few, like for the Latin Roman word, we just have few lines, written lines, and we have no possibilities to check. So I just focus, of course, in the European and then for the last centuries, North American history of the use of the rosin. So how was it used? How was it collected? And so on. For sure, what I said for Europe could be valued also for Asia, for Africa, for all the other continents. For me, it was making not that much sense to do researches also in those areas because they were basically not directly connected for our topic, let's say. Let's start from the beginning. We know that since the Paleolithic, humans were using rosin or resin in order to stick things together. We had some archaeological evidences from ancient arrows when they were, or spears, they were using the resin to stick together stone or and wood and sticks. But of course, we don't have direct sources. They are telling us how were they doing that, if they were using that also for other purposes, and so on. Before that, we begin to talk about the how were they producing it. Let's make a little bit of vocabulary exercise. What I said, that the sources are not really clear most of the time. I mean, the biggest problem all the historians have in all the fields when they are looking back in time is the vocabulary, because of course we are using the words, they're just shifting their meaning in or I would say already in 50, 60 years. You could imagine in 1,000 years. Of course, the subject could be the same, but the same word could be used for many different things. And the more this word is used, the more could have synonyms. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about resin, rosin, and turpentine. As you can see on the beginning, resin or turpentine, we already have a problem here, because resin is the common word that everyone is using for the substance which is coming out from conifers. So
you want to listen to it?
So this sticky thing that's coming out from the trees, but the official name is supposed to be turpentine. The substance is consisting 31% of terpenes, so mostly hydrocarbons, and this is why it's burning really, really well, and 69% of resin acid. Then we're gonna, this is another word that's really important for us, it would be oil or spirit of turpentine, which is the volatile oils. They are naturally coming out from the resin. We know nowadays that they need already, after 15-20 minutes after the resin came out from the tree, these oils are beginning to be ejected in the atmosphere. And then the rosin, which is the resin obtained after the distillation of the turpentine. This is the problem that, of course, for us in English, rosin is also the material that we are using, the tool that we are using for the strings or for other carpentry works. I didn't put here, but in other languages, for example, German, but Italian as well, we have also the word colophon or colophonia. Indicates the rosin, but it could indicate also the resin and the turpentine. So you see how all this word is a little bit difficult to focus, to just decide which word is used for what, and this makes a problem when you are facing ancient sources. Ancient, that could be also, I would say, 200-300 years ago, not only 600. So I just put 3 pictures here of the what are we talking about. So here we have the resin, which at least for me, for my mother, this is the nightmare of all mothers when you are sending the kids to play in gardens or in parks, because you will always find one of these trees that they are spitting a bit of resin, and of course the kid is gonna crash against it, making all the jack dirty, and it's pretty difficult to clean. We have the rosin, so this is the result of the distillation of the resin, and we have the spirit of turpentine. Now, I just decided to show you 3 pictures where more or less the color is the same. So we have this amber yellowish color, but we don't have to think, this is just an example. We have many different trees, kind of trees, but also the same tree in different condition could give us a different color of the substance. For example, we have the European larch, which is considered one from the sources, one of the best tree to collect turpentine. that is giving a white, water white turpentine. So a turpentine which is, or a resin which is as white as water, and is of course particularly expensive. So we talk about conifers. All the conifers are producing resin, but some conifers are doing more than others, or are doing in a better way. Now we are going to see a couple of trees, small description. I will show you a small description and also where are they ubicated. 3 of them will be in Europe. This because we know from the sources that they were using this kind of trees, and they are still using them in nowadays. And we are going to see one tree in the US. These 3 trees are native from Europe. There are some American versions, but of course they are colonization, or so like different subspecies of these pines of this family, or they are just being imported from Europe. So we begin with the Pinus nigra, which is just the Latin word for black pine. It's a pretty nice tree. As you can see here, we have 2 person. This is a tree in Corsica, so we are in the Mediterranean island on the north of Sardinia. It's pretty high. We have the compine, we have the bark. How is it made? It could live for 500 years. We will see that all these trees, they can live pretty long, around all of them 500 and 1000 years, if of course in the right circumstances, if so no one is tapping them to pick up the rosin. It's considered an invasive species, and I will show you why. Here we have the Mediterranean area where this tree is growing, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different species of Pinus nigra, subspecies. I'm sorry. We have the Salzmani species in North Africa and in Spain. This is, of course, the Carpathian Mountains. We have the Pallasiana here in Turkey, what now is Turkey, of course, and in Greece. And let's remember this area, because from here we will have the first sources about the harvesting and production of resin, more specifically in this area here. We have another subspecies which is called Pinus laricio, or also Piceo. Piceus is the Latin word that means resin, so it's already telling us what's its best quality, which compares just in this small area could not be a lot, but actually I ask you to remember also this area here, which is in the modern region of Calabria, because we're going to talk about that in the next time. And then this is just I beg your pardon, this area here, which is the region I'm coming from. This is pretty interesting because this tree usually just grow up in a Mediterranean, even if in high altitude, still in a Mediterranean climate, so where the temperatures are not extremely high. But in this area, the Venetians for centuries just chopped the trees in order to build ships and the trees of their ships. So when the Austria conquered this area, they just plant trees in here, which is the border between Slovenia, Italy, and Austria, and they are still growing pretty well, because this tree can grow pretty well in almost all the situations. Then Picea abies, so the spruce, Picea here also, it's a declaration of one of the best quality. This is a really common tree. For you, just to make it more clear, it's basically the tree you also are using for the Christmas tree. It could be 35, 55 meters, so 115, 180 feet. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell, I'm using, of course, with the metric system. Still, I guess that I converted everything also in the imperial system. If it's not like that, sorry, just ask Nick to translate, because I'm not that fast, I'm sorry. As you can see, it's a pretty different tree. It can also live 500 years. The bark is completely different. The pine cone is also pretty different. and it requires, most importantly, alpine climate or a continental climb. What does it mean? That here we can see pretty well. We just have this is all the mountain area, so altitudes that would be more than 1,000 meters, and temperatures that could go till -20. And we have all this green part is the native range. We have all the area of the Poland, the Baltic, Russia, Finland, Norway, Sweden. So where temperature could go really, really down, -60 also. But we can also have in continental climate, it's all this orange, brownish part. So here is not native, it's just been imported. And it can resist also pretty well, especially in this area. This is the area of the Black Forest in Germany, which is pretty famous, and so on. If it's rise in a particular condition with a stable temperature, humidity, and so on, this is the tree it's used to do the soundboards of our instruments from all the string instruments. Next one, this is an amazing tree that I really, really like. So the Larix decidua, or European larch. It's an amazing tree, could be 25, 45 meters tall. It can live almost the double than the trees that we saw so far. It is extremely cold tolerant. But on the other hand, it needs a lot of direct light. So we have also this amazing, amazing bark. It's not easy to tap, I would say. It's not easy to find. If it's pretty easy to find the other trees that they are just giving resin automatically by themselves. With the larch, this is not common at all. As I say, it's really cold tolerant. So we find in all the alpine areas. Here we have, of course, the border between Italy, France, Switzerland, Austria, a little bit Slovenia, but it's going also pretty deep inside. This is all still mountain chain of the Alps in Austria. As I said, it's really, really, really interesting tree. We don't find many of them because they need a lot of light. So if we have too narrow valleys, if there are too many trees around, this tree is not growing. And this is why also we don't find many of them around. We can find also, this is Poland, a little bit Poland in Carpathian, Slovakia. Piece of this is the Carpathian chain that's going through Ukraine and Romania. We just jump to the other side of the ocean for me. So for you in the North America, we have the Pinus palustris. Palustris is the Latin name for swamp. For you is known as a long-leaf pine. So this is basically a swamp pine, and this is telling you where does it grow. It's a little bit smaller than the trees we saw so far. It can live also a little bit shorter, and it prefers sandy soils and warm, humid climates. So you know already which part of US I'm talking about. We are exactly in this area from South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. It's not, of course, it's not just a coincidence that exactly in this area it will develop the American naval store industry. So, of course, all this huge process industry that is taking care about the extraction and then of the resin and the production of all the turpentine. So we talk about the sources. Here we have three guys. There are two Greek, Theophrastus and Dionysius from Halicarnassus, and one Roman, Pliny the Elder. Those are the first written sources we have about destruction of the Rosin. We have also some archaeological, of course, sources that they are a little bit older, but I just take this tree for an example. Theophrastus he was born 371 before Christ. So we are perfectly in between the 4th and the 3rd centuries before Christ, which is the golden age of the Greek culture. When we are thinking about Greek, Athens, and so on, we are referring, of course, to this period. Is one also of the largest expansion of the Greek culture. So we don't have to think only to the Greek, which is Greek nowadays, but also all the western part of the Anatolic Peninsula, so the actual Turkey, and good part of the south of Italy. He was a historian, a naturalist, and so on. We remember him mostly because he wrote, thank God, this book, Periphyton Aithion, so on the causes of plants, and is considered one of, if not the first, botanic treaty that we conserve on. And of course, it's just something in the middle between, in those times, they were not so separated right now. So there was something between geographical, historical, naturalistic treaty about the area of the Mediterranean Sea. He describes for the first time the process of extracting of the Greek peach. The Greek peach is called Greek peach because actually the Greek were doing that really easily. One more time, probably this process was also done somewhere in Asia, or was done by other populations and so on. We don't know this. We just know like that because we have the sources. They are saying this, and because also the sources that are coming after them, they are using the same name to intend. Is the guy also who is talking about the city of Colophon, and if it's telling you something, the words Colophon and Colophon in Germany, in German, is coming from this city, which according to Theophrastus was the most prolific city who was producing rosin, was surviving. I mean, most of his income was coming from the producing of the resin, and from the black pine resin. I hope you remember the map I showed you before. Then we make totally a huge jump because we move 200 years later. We have Dionysius of Halicarnassus and Pliny the Elder. I talk about them together because they are basically almost born in the same. They are born basically in the same period. Of course, Pliny is a little bit younger, but it makes not that much difference. But they are both talking small. A little bit about the rosin, about the rosin production. So Dionysius wrote the Romaiche Archeologia, so the Roman antiquities archaeology of Rome, where he's talking about the founding of Rome till the Punic Wars. Punic Wars that were already almost 150 years before his birth, like Pliny. But in this case, it's important for us because it's talking about this small region in south of Italy that I showed you before in Calabria, where there was this native population called Bruti, Bruzzi. We have many different ways to name it, who were really good in the producing of the resin. We know that the Bruti were just an Italic population, like Roman were, that they enter in contact with the Greek because this area has been colonized by the Greek. And we know that we had also a pretty bad fight with them, and they kicked them out from the peninsula. Probably they also learned how to do the resin from the Greek, because more or less the kind of production is exactly the same as Theophrastus indicated. At least one part of that. Pliny the Elder is pretty famous, is considered one of the father of the research, naturalistic research. Is also famous because he died in the eruption of the volcano in Pompeii, in the famous eruption, because he was just waiting outside the coast with his navy, and he just wanted to go to see it closer. The problem is that he went too close, and he died because of the smoke and the gas. He describes in detail the process of extraction and processing of the black pain resin, which is actually this special Pichia tree that I told you before. It's interesting because we know he's also saying that this is one of the most important income of the this area, because it was a really request product. We have to think that resin was used to make waterproof all vases, all the containers that were used for the transportation of liquids or semi-liquids, even for grains and so on. It was used, of course, to impermeabilize the ships. It was used as a glue, and it was also used in extremely small quantities to make the taste of the wine more enjoyable than it actually was. We don't have to think that the wine was that good, because all the sources we have about the Romans is that they were just pouring water in it, putting resin and honey to try to make it taste better. My original idea was to read you the translation of all these passages, but I find out that it was extremely long and pretty bored, also because I was getting bored myself reading that. So I will just show you these two small videos I prepare for you. This is the modern version, of course. Modern, I mean what it was used in the last 200 years in Europe, but it's basically the same as the process described by Plinius. So we have this tool which is used. Okay, we missed the beginning. Sorry. Okay, so on the beginning we have to peel the bark from the tree, as it's doing, and with this tool that could have many different shapes, but this is, let's say, the standard shape. This is another version. We have to basically tap the tree to make some carves in directly on the tree. We have to prepare. Here is preparing the space to put the small jar to collect the resin that's coming out. This is a little metal piece of metal that is used to help the collection of the resin. And here the jar, and then we go with the carving, with the tapping of the tree. As you can see, you have to go pretty deep, a couple of inches, and creating this, we call it in Italian, this is a fish bones cut, because it reminds the skeleton of the fishes. In this way, where the wand is, because basically a wand is made, the tree will automatically begin to produce resin in order to disinfect it and to reconstitute the bark. This form, of course, is helping the collection, is focusing the collection down here, and it's not possible. I'm sorry, I'm still an ancient musician player. Here we are. So the resin will be collected, helped by the gravity to this point, and then will fall in the jar, helped by. Here we can see how slowly also the color of the resin that is coming out. You don't think this is a fast process? Talking with Nick also, he thought it was his idea was basically the rubber tree or the maple syrup tree where the resin is pretty liquid and is coming out pretty easily. Here, the viscosity of this substance is higher. You have to think something pretty similar, also as a stickiness to honey, more or less. So it's something that is floating relatively slowly. And just to know this jar is full, which is pretty small, as you can see, will be refilled in 1 week, let's say, 1 or 2 weeks. The problem is that, of course, since that the viscosity is so high, this process needs a lot of manutention. You have to go at least 1 or twice per week to clean the cuts you made in the wood, because the resin will just get stuck there, just doing its job basically. So so you have to come to clean, take out all the resin which is become solid, and to let the wound split again. This is the second method, which is the method described by Theophrastus, and it's the method that is giving us the Greek resin. This video has been shot in this Calabrian area in south of Italy, where we have many evidences of pine resin production. We found the ruins of a city, Roman city, which was called Picea, once more time, resin city, where there were many manufactories that inside had this kind of oven construct to cut to produce resin. So you saw that you have to chop your tree, mostly the roots. We know that most of the resin in this kind of tree is housed in the roots. Then has to be covered firstly with sticks, then with clay. Here it is, and after that we have to switch on a huge fire. Could be pretty high, as you can see, and has to burn a lot and with a lot of heat. What does it happen? That the rosin, which is taken inside of the wood, will just melt down and will come out easily by itself in a second jar, which is posted. Here you can see that it's a completely different product than we have tapping the trees. This process is also giving us all these oils, these hydrocarbons we were talking about, if you are closing, of course, the jar in time. In this one, it's clear that it has been also a kind of cooking or combustion inside the rosin, and it's coming out completely black with a lot of impurity. This is because of the heat. So the rosin that we are having from this kind of process is, let's say, pure, less pure than the other one. Let's make a jump back. This is a extract from a letter of an English guy that this is published in 1689. Probably the letter he's a little bit older. So this guy went in the south of France, close to Nimes, on the Mediterranean coast of France, and he's describing the process, the population of Marseille, which is the second city in France, a huge harbor.
I think we lost Francesco for a second. Sorry about that. I think the Wi-Fi.
It's my fault. I hope no, because I don't know how to solve it. No
Well, we
worries.
have you back, so if you could,
Yeah, so
yeah,
good.
from
I'm
here,
really
yeah.
happy. Perfect. We were saying that, as you can see here, we cut off the bark of the pine to make the sap run down into a hole, which they cut at the bottom to receive it, blah, blah, blah. So it's doing exactly the process. If we want, it's a little more, a bit less raffinate, that the video that we saw, but it's basically the same concept. And it's exactly what also Plinius is describing in his Historia Naturalis. And after that, he's also saying that this is chopping the tree and putting to cook in these special pots with holes in the bottom and so on. So the interesting thing is that the process of harvesting resin didn't change in 1,600 years. We have to think that this collection is still used nowadays, actually, and it was used also for in Europe for the whole 20th century. So basically, in 2,000 years, it never changed. Probably because it's in the end is the one that is giving you more resin. Here we have a small video. I will just let it go. This is from the collection of the turpentine in Tyrol, which is the region between Germany and Italy, in Austria. Of course, we say that turpentine has always had a lot of market. It was used, I forgot, it was used and it's still used also for medical reasons, especially for the throat, for the lungs. It's good for the respiratory area. You can find also candies or syrups when you have too much cough and so on. The abstract is coming from the resin. And we have a news also, Plinio is saying that the Celtic populations in the north of Italy were using it for the same purpose. Here we can see how basically the turpentine, the resin is coming out from the trees, and after this is like solid resin and so on. So you have many different, it's not clean at all. So pretty soon, also here we don't know exactly since when did it begin. The Romans were already trying to do that. We can read in Plinius. They also tried to make a distillation of the turpentine. On the beginning, probably to try to clean it, but also here, for example, we see this is the last rosin that's coming out at the end of the process of crystallization. This is the reaction of the resin with water, and so on. How does it work? Probably the distillation of the resin began with just the purpose to try to clean it. We have some sources about the 16th, 15th century. They are saying that they were already heating them up with steam in some small portable barrels in order to try to split the resin from all the dirt, all the pieces of wood, the insects, the leaves that were naturally falling, because it's of course natural that some dirt is gonna fall inside the resin. And it went more and more, of course, specific. So they add process of distillation, and they have been able to have different substances more and more precisely. Of course, this is a picture of an American distillery, let's call it, in North Carolina, I guess. As you can see, it was not a really enjoyable work because you had to use a lot of steam, really high temperatures. The oils, the spirits, they are coming out, they are not the best. Even if they are used for medicinals, if you inhale too much of them, they are not good for your health. And it's it's extremely dirty also job. This is a print from the 18th century of let's call distillery jar. So we have to think that the first barrel where the crude resin was hosted was put it here with a cannula, which just was heat them up with steam. We don't use directly fire. We never use directly fire to cook the resin because it ruins it. We saw what's happening with the Greek rosin. So it's this barrel is heat up with steam. The resin is getting liquid. Resin can melt pretty low temperatures. I will tell you later how low, but pretty low actually. It will just fall in this chamber. In this chamber, there will be this line is basically it's water. So we'll follow in this chamber. It will mix with water. Also, this chamber will be heat up with steam, and the water evaporating will just mix with the spirits of turpentines that will go up and then fall down and came down out from this step, since that resin cannot, it's like oil, it's like pitch, it cannot of course mix with water. So what we have here in D would be a mixture of oil and turpentine, so spirit of turpentine, I'm sorry. And from this step, we will just collect the normal resin, the solid part, which is the part that likely were used also to create the rosin. As I say, turpentine resin is a huge industry here in this. This is just one part because there is also table 2 of the consumption of rosin in the US industries. We are from 47 and 48, and you can see that we have chemicals and pharmaceutical paper, gum, soap, paint, rubber, printing, shoe polish. We go really. We have many different uses. It's surprising to see in how many different also categories the rosin is used. I would like also to spend a couple of words about the harvesting in the US. Also because I think not only because I'm talking with you, but also because I think it's pretty interesting. Of course, they use, as I said, the best tree in the US for the collection of the turpentine was this area from North Carolina till Florida. And on the beginning, it was basically, of course, also interested by slavery. So 90% of the workers were on the beginning slaves, and after the abolition of the slavery, still they remain to be African black people. Am I right? I'm sorry. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm just not really confident with this vocabulary in English. So as you can see in the pictures, they continue to do the job. That's because, of course, was not well-paid job. It was pretty hard. In the video that we saw in the beginning was the cat was made pretty high in the tree just because it was more comfortable to do, because it was just showing up. But actually this is the real place where the carving, the tapping is supposed to be, so pretty low, and you have to work all the time in this position. Here on the this picture is pretty interesting. I took from an article of 1911 where they were actually pushing to the necessity to change the way to extract the rosin. Here on the left, we have the old box system, as it's called, which is basically the system we saw described in this letter of the English guy in France, which consists in the cutting of a box inside the tree. As you can see, that could be pretty deep. It's taking almost half of the diameter of the tree and letting the rosin fall down. Once per week they were coming and they were collecting what it was left from in the box, let's say. We have this production is extremely stressful for the tree, as you could imagine. So it was like cutting the age of the tree, and also after when the tree was cut, the quality of the wood was pretty low, and it had also the huge problem that all this exposed resin was rising constantly the risk of fire, which we know were pretty common, especially in the south with this kind of environment. We know that they began to switch, even if in 1911 they still have to convince many people to pass to, they call it the French process, which was used in Europe. They switched around 1840, let's say 1860. And exactly in this period, we saw that America was importing turpentine from the US. When they changed this method of tapping, the situation just changed. And from the end of the 19th century, it was the US that was exporting turpentine, I'm sorry, to Europe. Here we have this new system that in according to the article, was the new system. It could remind the system that is used for the collecting of the maple syrup or the gum. I didn't find any other source that this system actually continues. There should be something didn't work. I don't know. I mean, we could imagine, because here, of course, all the dirt is not coming in, all the spirits stays inside, but probably it was too slow, it was not collecting enough resin, and so on. I forgot to say that, of course, the process of harvesting was beginning as soon as possible. So let's say around March, when the tree was awakening, it was ending in October. Still, in Europe, we are talking about maximum 2 kilos of material per year. So from March till October, each tree was able to give only 2 kilos of material. Here we have trees that have been all tapped, and here we can see exactly this process of distillation that we were talking about, with water and steam. All this part down here was heated. Let's go on. I made a small map in recap of the area we took so far. So we have this yellow small part. This is where the city of Colophon was. It doesn't exist anymore, but was more or less in this area. And this was the district that was used for its collection. Here we have the area described by Dionysius and Plinius, which now is a national park, and it didn't almost change since Roman times, as far as we know. Here we have the area of Marsil. It's going almost to the border with Italy, which is described in the English letter. We didn't talk about this area. This is the Blanche of Bourgogne. So not only wines were coming from Bourgogne, but also actually a pretty high quality of resin, who was really fat. That's why it was white, and was coming from the Fier, which was imported, as we learned. And then we have this green area where the extraction was made mostly to large European larches, and where it's historically called, the product is called Venetian turpentine. The Venetian turpentine, it's called like that because, of course, all this area here was under the direct control of Venice, or under this economical influence. And we know that Venice used a lot, liked to use its mountain land to collect as much materials as possible. But we see also that it's expanded in all the Austrian mountains. It's more or less where we have more concentration of larch. Why larch is so good? Actually, in the beginning, they thought it was just a kind of fancy thing, but then they find out that actually is the resin that react better or better. It doesn't react at all if mixed with water, because there is the possibility that if we are mixing this resin with water, a small part of the water will still enter in the resin and it will change its color. With the large resin, this is not possible at all. And then here we see, of course, this is, as I told you, is exactly the diffusion of the longleaf pine. I just want to show you how big this is called also the turpentine belt. The turpentine belt is considered to all the other areas put together. And this is also telling us how actually the process are important in the extraction and in the production of the material. So after this huge introduction that I think was necessary to a bit understand what were we talking about, let's talk about the Rosin music. One more time, we don't know a lot because of course they are the problem of the sources, but in this case we're also facing the problem of the monopolies. Right now, as right now, many industries, they don't like to talk about how are they doing things. In Italy, for example, we always make the example of the recipe of the Coca-Cola. We don't know the rest. No one knows the recipe of the Coca-Cola. As well, back in time, professional handcrafts were extremely jealous about their process. There is also the problems that most of the time there were the guilds that they were taking the secret, and if you want to know something you had to enter in the guild, so everything was extremely protected. And this is because also we have to think that in this world that people had a completely different approach also to the handwork. So right now maybe we will think 4 times before to try to chop something, to create something. In that times was everything a little bit more fluid, let's say. So we have to face this problem. We have to face the problem that many sources were not written, were lost, I'm sorry. And we also have to face the problem that, of course, when something is obvious, you don't write it down, which is exactly the problem that we have every time that we are reading as a HIP musician some ancient source, because they write, you know what I mean. Now, how many times do we find the writer who writes just, yeah, but you know what I mean. So first question, why are we using rosin? Because it sticks. That's the short answer. How does it sticks? How does it work? So as I told you before, the melting temperature of the rosin is pretty low. So we're talking about 140, 158 Fahrenheit, which means that you can, if you try, actually, also you can also a little bit melt it with your bare hands if you have the patience enough to take and to manipulate a little bit to raise enough the temperature. You can melt it with your bare hands. But anyway, when we are brushing the bow, our hairs over the rosin in this case, the colophon, we are with friction between the two surfaces. We are just creating temperature, which is enough to make the rosin melt. As fast, I mean, as low the melted temperature is, as fast the rosin also coming back to its original form, coming back solid. It's really interesting. It's surprising how fast can it go back to the solid state after you fully melt it, it could be boiling, and after really 1-2 minutes, it's perfectly cold and almost solid. So when we finish to brush it, it will just solidify again. And here we have these two pictures of the bow hair, yeah, without the rosin and with the rosin. Here we can see these small nuggets. They are basically small pieces of rosin that they just solidified after they melted on the air. So what's happening when are we playing? That of course the same process. So the friction of the friction between hairs and strings is making the rosin melt again, and it will stick as much as we'll do if it was on a tree or if we were using to glue something. This, of course, I've been extremely imprecise. I read the paper, which is called "How Does Rosin Effect Sound?" If someone is interested, I can send it. As I said, I made humanistic studies. I can translate you from Greek not a lot anymore, but from Latin easily. But I don't understand a lot about physics and so on, about chemistry and so on. That's why it's not that I didn't read it, but for me it was completely sense. It had no sense at all to put formulas that I cannot understand. Okay, it was not making sense to pretend to know what I was talking about. So this is basic, the real basic process that's happening. If someone is interested, I can send the article. It's open source, and if has the patience to read everything, could understand better. So we say that we don't have sources. We can, of course, reasonably think that they were using it since the beginning of the history of the music. But the first printed time that we actually see someone that's talking about the rosin, we have in this treaty called Musica Teusch, from 1532, written by Hans Gerle, who was a lutist, German lutist, who was active mostly in the area of Nuremberg, so middle Germany, on the west side. What was talking about? The treaty is just about Gamba and youth, and how to play it and how to play tabulaturas from these two instruments. And before getting really into the topic, he's just doing a small description of the instruments, and about the gamba, he's just saying gamba is an instrument, blah, 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 which the string players rub the bow with colfanium or with English rosin, which one finds at the apothecary. So we have also here in the Alt-German mit Colfanium oder mit englischem Harz. Das findet man in der Apotheken really easily. Not many things. We don't have to be surprised because, as I say, nowadays is not that much. Also because we don't realize, how many things the rosin is involved. But back in time, it was something really that was normal in everyone's life. So printing stuff, writing down stuff, everything was expensive. Ink was expensive, paper was expensive. They didn't like to waste time in obvious thing. And also we have to think that probably musicians were producing themselves the rosin. We will see in short time, in a while. So if some amateurs need that, they were just going to the musician and buying it. And finally, we arrive to the, let's say, protagonist of the evening, Francesco Galeazzi. Was an Italian violin player and conductor, but he was also a chemistry historian, geography, mathematician. He wrote many treatises about many things, but we know him because, thank God, he wrote Elementi teorico-pratici di musica, which is just musical, theoretical, practical elements, which is a compendium, pretty big because they are two books around 800 pages, something like that. That is basically all what you have to know if you are an amateur and you want to play music, also with professional musicians. Probably, of course, you know that to be an amateur back in time doesn't mean that you were not able to play. It was just meaning that for many different reasons, and the biggest one was your social class position, you were not allowed to be a professional musician, basically. So in this book, we have literally everything. The first part is dedicated to the description of the instrument, violin technique, how to use the bow, a couple of exercises to help your hand to move better, and so on. The second part, which is the part that is interesting for us, is describing all the world that's around just violin playing, just the playing of the instrument. So we have the description how to rehair your bow. When he describes how you have to take care of your instruments, how to do small reparations on your instrument. This is something that probably all the musicians, also professional musicians, should know right now. But we somehow completely forgot. We lost this kind of attitude. Maybe in the ancient music we have a little bit more. But if you go to a modern player right now and telling them, yeah, you know, I have to move a little bit the sound post, I have the tool, I'm doing that, they are looking at you like, what are you doing? You have to go to the doctor, to the luthier, and to do the operation, like if he's going on a heart operation, surgery. So in that time it was basically normal. There is also a small thing I like always to remember, that is describing perfectly which kind of people were we talking about. Galeazzi is telling you how you are supposed to behave when you're playing in an orchestra. Many things about you don't have to do your own diminutions, otherwise it's a mess, and so on. But it's also telling you that you always have to follow what the conductor and what the section leader is telling to you, doesn't matter which is his social condition. Which is a perfect description of the Europe of that time, where the nobles, or anyway the high aristocracy, were even if they in this kind of situation where there was a clear technical difference between the musicians, still they wanted to make value their social position. So the interesting thing about this print, this compendium, is that we have two versions. The first one was printed as I wrote in Rome in 1791, but had such a huge success that, like as we can see here, was reprinted in 1817, a couple of years before he was died, in Ascoli, which is another city in the central of Italy, in the central Italy. Let's go so a bit deeper in think in the second article, so about the bow and some news about regarding the violin. We have these two parts, two small sections. I will just translate. I was thinking to read that also. I will just translate on the moment. I think it's better. It's less boring. So they asked me many times, more than many times, about a recipe to do a good piece, a good rosin. And this is interesting because this reminds me immediately this kind of influencer that nowadays they are like, yeah, everyone asked me which product I'm using for my hairs and blah, blah, blah. This is exactly the same, basically. Probably no one asked him, but it's just an excuse to talk about that. And in Grazia dei Dilettanti, so this is really interesting. I'm gonna write it to help these amateurs of these kind of things. So giving them 3 recipes that for me they are all 3 of really good quality because I experimented myself. So also here you can see there is a kind of taking the distances. Okay, I'm giving you the recipe, but you will not be able to do as a good product as I do, because still you are an amateur and I am. Also, this word bagatelle is like almost a small kid joke. It's really interesting on a also vocabulary talking part. So I will read the point 45. I'm sorry. And in this point, paragraph 45 is just telling you how you are supposed to recognize a good quality of pitch of resin. So to test good resin, a drop of resin, of course, is thrown into a piece of paper. And when cold, it is broken and observe that it's not sticky and soft, in which case it will not be cooked enough, and that is not too crumbly, because then it will be burned and worthless. It is also observed in a large mass that it's very translucent and that no dirt or impurity are visible within. So we have here a small description just to understand how was the rosin made. Then we come to the three recipes he called modo primo, modo secondo, and modo terzo. So let's see from the first method. This is the longest one. It will take a while. I will just read the translation. I beg for your mercy. So have a new glazed pot that can hold at least a couple of pounds of good Greek peach. So we already know from which kind of material are we starting this blackish material that came out from the cooking, crushed into small pieces. Of course, the resin was soiled when it was sold. To recognize the best quality, look for it to be translucent and dark in color. Also here, translucent, it means on the border of the material, not of course in the middle, because the density of the substance was not allowing you to do that. And if any whitish and opaque part are found, reject it as bad. The whitish and opaque part are actually the fat part of the resin that you can see really pretty easily when the material is still raw. Then place the pot over a flameless charcoal fire and try to melt it evenly all over, stirring it with a wooden spatula. While it melts, had an height of a stick of Spanish wax or a height of mastic in tears. This is exactly what we were talking before. With this process of cooking of the rosin from the Greek peach, we are losing many of the natural substances they are inside the peach. So we have to reintroduce it with wax or mastic. And this is interesting because this is exactly what the luthiers are doing right now in modern days when they are doing their own rosin. If you take a look, you're going on the website of the many companies, they are doing rosin, even the one they are saying they are doing in a historical way. 90% of them, they are telling you they are putting something, not what, but like, yeah, we're putting wax, we're putting mastic and other substances inside. That's because the rosin, the material on the beginning has a lack of some substances. When everything is melted, skim it with a new wooden spoon and remove all the impurity that rise to the surface and let it simmer gently for a quarter of an hour. Then take a finger's height of very strong vinegar in a common glass, which you will pour into the peach, always starting with the wooden spoon. It's interesting, this vinegar stuff is also mentioned in the Plinius treaty, when he said that they are putting it in the Greek peach to help to clean the Greek peach that's coming out. Then here we have the biggest problem with this process that I experienced myself. The problem is that the melted rosin behave exactly in the same way as would boiling oil. So if you are throwing something that's cold with a high concentration of water, it will just explode. And this is exactly what happened to me once, and that's why I cannot cook rosin at my place in Italy. Otherwise, my mother is gonna kill me. Also, it's a mess to clean up after everything. A great effervescence will then be excited. Here we are, which, if you are not careful, will cause all the pitch to be thrown out of the pot. Exactly. However, to use it in case it spills, it's a pity I read this too late. However, to use it in case of spill, keep a large sheet of paper prepared. Its edge will have been turned up, and the pot will be placed on it, so that we are making like a kind of bowl made of paper in order to try to save the whole situation. Then we put the pot back on the fire, and after which we'll light it with a little piece of paper. So we have to burn it, and if there are any greasy particles floating on the surface, they will burn. So not only explosion with vinegar, but also burning it. In this case, let it burn for a few moments, then extinguish the flame with a strong poof that disappears, or by something drop over, and so on. Let's go on. Then pour what is left into small paper molds or into well-cleaned egg shells. This is also interesting, because actually the biggest problem you have when everything is done is to take out the rosin without to break everything. In this case, eggshells is a really interesting solution. Being careful not to pour it to the very end, but leaving about a finger's depth in the pot, which will be emptied separately, as it will be worse and cloudy pitch. This is the recipe I use daily. This is also really interesting that this is the recipe he's using daily. What does it mean? It means that he was doing low quality rosin every day. But as all the string player knows, if you're not throwing it again every time that you're doing a mistake against a wall, rosin will last at least a couple of months. So this is also make me think that probably he was the first one to sell rosin, I'm sorry, to all the people, to all the amateurs that were around. Let's go to the second method. So raw, with the use that wants the use of raw resin pine. Sorry. Second method, take a raw and impure pine resin in whatever quantity you desire. Place it in a very wide new terracotta pot. Pour it enough water to cover the resin by 4 fingers and boil it over a charcoal fire, constantly skimming and discarding the impurities that rise to the surface. So as we say, the resin, when it was arriving, was full of insects, small pieces of wood, leaves, dirt, and so on. According to him, melting the rosin was enough to let all this thing floating in the water and be able to collect it. When I began my journey with rosin making, I was following this method. The problem is that with the impurity, also probably 50–60% of the rosin I was trying to cook was also coming apart, because the resin was not detaching completely from the dirt, and still, in any case, many dirt was remaining in the final product. I don't know if this was a kind of scam. It just omitted to say something. Probably was like that. It just wanted to protect the right recipe. Probably it's like that. But for my personal experience, this kind of process of cleaning is not really worth it. Once all the moisture has evaporated, pour a drop into a sheet of paper and examine it if it is well cooked. If it's not, sufficiently cooked, add new water and boil and evaporate as before, and repeat this as many times as necessary until it has reached the required consistency and has the proper qualities. Especially when you are beginning, this is extremely stressful process, because it's really important that all the water will evaporated, because if you're pouring the resin too early, some part of water would just come in the resin, will be englobated by the resin, and after it will dry out, we will use it, and at one point we will just reach these small chambers of water that created, and we are going to break them, and we are just making wet our hairs. So we don't. It doesn't have to be too early. It doesn't have to be too late, as I said previously. Also the Galeazzi, because it's just you are just burning it, and you're making basically glass that's completely useless. This happened to me as well. So the rating time that you have, the rate time you have, is extremely small, and this is something that you can just learn with experience. So this method is longer than the first, and yields pitch of excellent quality. It's true. It could take really the whole day. And it was taught me by celebrated Pietro Nardini, to a distinguished personage. Pietro Nardini is this nice guy who was a Toscan violin player who worked a lot in Germany, Austria, and so on. And apparently was also the violin player from the Toscanian string quartet, where Boccherini was playing. That was considered one of the first official string quartet we have. And then we went to the third method, Venetian turpentine. This is the method that you usually see when you buy historical rosin nowadays. If you're taking a look in luthiers, all the luthiers are doing it. Also the company Melos and so on, they are using this third method. So this is taken from the Encyclopédie Méthodique under the name colophony, and it's made in the following way. In a new glass pot, put 2 or 3 pounds of good Venetian turpentine, then fill it with enough water to cover it by 4 or 5 fingers above. Boil it until the liquid is consumed. If the turpentine has reached the proper consistency, which is known by pouring a drop into a piece of paper, this we already know, it will be strained as usual. If it's not considered enough, add new water and repeat the operation, blah, blah, blah. We know this thing already. This method is very tedious, sometimes lasting a whole day, but it yields excellent pitch, especially if it's mixed with a little of the other kind. So this is exactly the problem I was talking about on the beginning about words, about vocabulary. What does it mean about Venetian turpentine? Modern rosin producer, they are thinking to spirit of turpentine most of the time, or anyway to the turpentine who has been distilled. But if you remember what we saw on the beginning, in many cases, and officially right now, if you are looking on the official denomination of the words, the turpentine is just the resin that's coming out from the tree, and the Venetian turpentine is just the resin coming from the European larch. So which kind of material was he's using here? It's also true that we will see shortly what the Encyclopédie Méthodique is going to say. This method is taken from a section of the Encyclopédie Méthodique that was not regarding the instruments or the world of music. So it's also, but from the carpentry, because the resin, the turpentine was used also to fix the paint over or to protect anyway the furnitures, the wood of the furnitures. So we don't really know which kind of substance were they using. For my personal experience, and also talking with friends, with colleagues, with teachers here in Mozarteum, if we compare one rosin made with this third method in a modern way, so using probably the spirit of turpentine or the anyway a distilled not a pure turpentine, Venetian turpentine. We are making a comparison with the second method. The second method will give, for our taste, modern taste, an excellent, long way better result. One more time, why? This is the big question. Is it like this because are we using the wrong raw material? Is it like this because we change our taste? Is it like this because we are not able to interpret it correctly what the sources are telling us? I mean, in this case, the sources are pretty clear. They are telling us the third method is giving us a better one. Punct. We don't know. I have this theory, Nick knows pretty well, that probably our taste changed in the centuries. When we are trying to cook something from an ancient cookbook, then we are at least a little bit suspect. It's not sure that we are gonna enjoy what we cook. Also for aesthetical, I mean, if you are looking at a man of the beauty of a human being in the 70th, 80th century during the Renaissance, Italian Renaissance, and so on, it's completely different than what we have right now. Probably also with the music was the same, if you ask me. Still, this is a topic I would like to get a little more deep in the future to understand if we are doing something wrong, or just we change our way to play and we change also our needs. So, just to be sure, I went to the Encyclopédie Méthodique. This is the fourth book. We know the Encyclopédie Méthodique was the first probably encyclopedia born with this idea during the French Revolution, and it's just collecting all the known of the world. This is at least what they wanted to do. In the fourth book, we have this. The first section is dedicated to music in general and music instruments. We have the description of the violin here. Upassen screen fila colophon. Here is just quoting the colophon, the Rosin, to saying that you are just putting on the hairs to make it play better. We find a small also quote here under the definition here down here. Le frottu clean the colophon, also under the definition of bow. So it's interesting that in the section dedicated to the world of music, where describing the instruments, is also saying a little bit how are they built, how you're supposed to build. We don't find the colophon, but where do we find the colophon? I already spoiled you. Under the carpentry category. I will just translate for you. So in order, colophon, this is the beginning of the definition. Colophony, a type of resin or of a brown or rather blackish color, which is used to boil water down until it becomes solid. And then follows the description of the production. That's exactly what Galeazzi wrote. He just made copy-paste. Also here, no one is talking about, I mean, when we're talking about the color, of course, they were not using Venetian turpentine, because in France they were using the Marseille or the Bourbonnais one. But they are saying it's a resin of brown or red blackish color. So one more time, was that exactly the material we're using right now? I don't know. They are just questions. So here I put a couple of exempla of the different kind of rosin. Here we have the first method. Those two, they are two pictures. This is made by Nick. This is mine. They have both been taken in the museum in Eisenstadt in the Esterhazy Castle, there is the museum dedicated to Haydn. Eisenstadt was one of the two cities where Haydn worked when he was under the Esterhazy. And as we can see, this is clearly made with the first method. It's black. You can barely see through. Unfortunately, from the picture, you cannot really clearly see, but I mean, this is exactly the first method. the thing that survived till nowadays will tell us that actually the Galeazzi was right. This is not a really high quality. The thing that someone forget. Usually when we have something high quality from the past, it's just or because someone was buried, was put in someone's graves, or because, like in Pompeii, something extremely tragic happened, or they lost it. But in this case, I mean, we had also here in close, we have a bow, we have also a sound post, we had, I think, also a stick from a cello, some pieces, they were all together. They were just left there on purpose. If it was that good quality rosin, probably they were just using it. This is, I'm doing a small advertisement. This is the rosin that I'm producing. As you can see, it's completely different. It's yellow. It's really nice solid. It is translucent actually, because if you're looking on the borders where there is less quantity of resin, you can see through. And this is a rosin made with the third method, so using nowadays with the turpentine. As you can see, it's a bit yellowish. Of course, this is the wooden cover that is changing a little bit, but it's also the color of the resin, and you can see that it's in historical way. It's made in a historical way, because also this one, if you warm it up a little bit, it will just melt, and you can manipulate it pretty easily. In fact, you can see here there are my fingerprints and so on, because I was just pushing it down. I have also here, I hope you can see, this is another rosin, which is actually made for mistake from one of mine. So it happened that my teacher broke it and decided to melt it down. Melting it down, he overcooked it. And as you can see, it's completely, you can see through. He overcooked it, and it was not good anymore. I mean, he called me and he told me, yeah, no, I made a mess. Your rosin is not working anymore. What happened? He just melted, and in the melting, he basically continued the cooking of the resin, and that was the result. He lost also a lot of all the properties that he had. So we arriving to the end of the huge journey. I hope it was not too boring. With two small, let's call lighter moments of the side effects. As I told you, which are dramatic, but read right now, I don't know, they made me a little bit laugh. We say that the turpentine in general is used for medical purposes, that you can find in candies, they were pouring it in wine and so on, but still it's a pretty toxic material, especially the vapes that are coming out. So it happens, we have this small here on the left, we have this small article about a guy in southern Rhodesia, which was a colonial country in south of Africa. In 1931, was an adult male guy of 39 that drank 6 ounces of spirit of turpentine because he was an alcoholic, basically. And of course, he died because there were no other options. The interesting thing is that when they made the autopsy, they opened the stomach and they find out that from these 6 ounces, 4 were basically new, completely untouched. So they were not as being processed. So if you are asking if you ever had, I still not recommend it. But if you just want to try, apparently the limit is 2 ounces of spirit of turpentine. More, you're gonna die. Less, probably you don't also feel good. Also because the stomach was completely macerated, and the wall of the stomach, this is interesting, felt like leather. So it was this kind of impermeabilizing process of the turpentine that worked extremely well. On the right, we have another small newspaper article dated 1878 that is making us think that probably we didn't change that much. I find also comforting that we are not living in horrible times where fake news are spread everywhere, because also in this is an article who has been written in reply to a guy, this Mr. Doe, who saw some bags, containers of turpentine outside of the local brewery. And because of that, he deducted that they were pouring it inside the beer to try to poison them. As we can, apparently this news spread a lot because we had an article that's tried to debunk it, and they say, yes, of course, it's larger is employed in brewers, but it's no means following that it goes into beer. It's used for a coating inside of the barrels to prevent the escape of the gas, so to make an impermeabilization work, which is what is basically the turpentine was used for since when we know. I'm done. This is the bibliography for who is interested. I can also send in a separate way. Separately, the good thing is most of them they are articles, open source that you can find easily online on JSTOR mostly. So, if there are any questions, I know that I spoke a lot. I hope that you were not too much, you were at least a little bit entertained and not too much bored. And if there are some questions, I will really, really be happy to reply.
Well, Francesco, thank you so much. It's really, really fascinating. I well, I have an opening question to start things off. Have you experimented with this tasting at wine and the rosin making process? It's really fascinating to me. I'll just say for a second, having been with Francesco and gone and harvested a little bit of what would become rosin, it smells amazing. And also,
Yeah.
I use also Francesco's rosin. I've been converted and I won't switch back. It smells unbelievable. It smells like a pine tree, really. And even when you play, the bow and the instrument smells like it too. So I can imagine it kind of has a nice aroma that it adds to wine, but I can't imagine how one would do that. So is it something you've explored, or can you speak a little more about that?
About the wine, you mean, or the general food? Actually, the wine, I know there is nowadays Greek wine which is called Resina, which also the word resin is come from actually. That back in time had a little bit of drops of resin inside. I don't know if they are still doing that. Honestly, when I was in Greece, I didn't have the chance to try that, to taste it, but probably you can find it. More in general, well, there are especially in all the Alpine area, but especially in Austria, there is this schnapps, which is made with the confines of a small conifer mountain tree that grows in a really, really high part of the mountains. And they are also doing a syrup out of that. And when you're drinking it, the alcohol extracted a little bit, because the turpentine is soluble in alcohol, not in water, but in alcohol is. So when you're drinking these schnapps, you can have a little bit this taste. And then in the end, I will say there are some candies. They are called pine drops that I remember when I was a kid, because sometimes they were popping out because of my grandmother or my mother, I don't remember, that I've been able recently to find back in my hometown, which are basically these candies, green candies, which inside a drop of a small drop of the turpentine. And the taste is exactly as the smell. It's really interesting. It's something that I'm kind of addicted to these candies. In fact, I'm not buying them because otherwise I'm happy that I didn't find here in Austria. Because otherwise I would be all the time here. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Todd?
Thank you so much. I'm going to put something in the chat. Just give me a second.
Sure. Well, Todd, while you're writing that, I'm going to ask another question. I'm curious on, can you speak, Francesco, a little bit about, well, what is the scene of historical uh, rosin making study of? Oh, well, my question is, can you speak to who else is doing research in this field? Are you kind of an island? Are there other people who are going forward? I'm just curious. It's something that I think, like you had mentioned, not a lot of people really think about, take it for granted. So, are there people you confer with and work with, and what is the rosin making scene like?
I completely sorry. I missed you. Completely missed you.
No
Uh,
problem.
no problem.
I'll just to summarize my ramblings into a
Yeah,
clear,
yeah.
concise question. What is the scene of rosin making? Are there a lot of people? It's something we take for granted, I think, a lot of us as players.
Mhm.
Is there a small esoteric community that works together, to make these discoveries? Are you more of an island? Are there just people scattered around? Is there instead of the
No,
Viola de
I
Gamba
think
Society, historical rosin making society? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. Also, because if it's something that is um, if it's something that would accommodate probably all the rosin maker right now to the ancient one, is that no one wants to show the recipe, to show what they are doing, because in the end we are not talking about the Coca-Cola recipe. I mean, it's something that you can somehow try to reproduce, and no, absolutely not. It's like with luthiers, they are not gonna tell you your secret. No, it's like a
Yeah.
kind of wizard. This is, I read the question, the rosin different is, so I'm curious about the stickiness of rosin for different instruments, for example, rosin. This is, thank you, because I forgot to say that. This is a really, really good question. I don't want to do right now the guy who is doing the conspiracy guy and so on, but those are 99% marketing excuses. I read also an article from a guy who was he was in String, in the newspaper, American newspaper for strings, that he was involved in this industry, and he was admitting that also in a chemically speaking, the difference is almost nothing. It's also the tribe between spring and the winter rosin, that someone is more dry, then it's more used for. Also here, yes, it could be that you have some, it would be really, really, really a small difference that doesn't justify the change of the use. I will say more. We don't have any kind of sources that are telling us that, no, I broke my violin rosin, I need to do a new one because I just found the contrabass rosin. The Galeazzi, as I saw, I didn't cut any part about the rosin. It's not even mentioning any kind. He was just saying, I mean, he has been extremely honest also, because when he said, I learned this recipe from this guy, I took this one from from the encyclopedia. He was, if there were a difference, he was saying this rosin is better for this kind of instruments, this rosin is not. One more thing, but I mean, just take it as it comes. I was many years ago in a small theater in central Italy, and on the backstage there was a column. I asked, it was like a column right before the entering the entrance of the stage, and I asked what was that for, and they told me that back in time, it means till the Second World War, when there was still an orchestra in that theater, there was just a huge block of resin, and that all the musicians, before to go in the pit to begin to play, they were just taking one of two stripes of rosin. Didn't matter which kind of instrument where they play. One more time, I read this news also on a website that were talking about the theater of Lucca, so in Tuscany. I don't have any other evidences. I try to dig a little bit, talking with people that they are working nowadays in theaters, but most of no one in the biggest theater still have this kind of news. I can say from my experience that I gave my rosin to really from violin players, modern and baroque players, so with metal and gut strings, till double bass players, and all of them have been extremely happy. I think there is a lot of part. I'm sorry, I don't want to make a kind of to begin some kind of battle and so on, but we have to think that many yes. So it depends from also which material they're using. So I'm coming. Sorry, we're putting too many things. In general, honestly, I will not pay too much for a rosin. When we are paying 78, 82 euros or dollars from a rosin that's coming from a big island in the south of the world, we are just paying 60 euros of commercials and stuff. There is nothing that justifies so high prices. On the other way down, actually, so if they are too cheap, that makes a huge difference, because most of the time, and this is also to reply to what was the question. I just saw a pop-up of the question: what's make the double bass rosin so soft? Is that they are using also other materials, not only resin, but they are also using distillation from, for example, the new big substitute of the rosin, which is the oil. From the oil, you know that we have many products that are coming out. One of them is also a kind of resin, which is nowadays the biggest substitute of the resin. It's used, for example, the hypoallergenic resins, they are coming from the oil, and also from this thickness of the resin, or better, the softness is according to how you're cooking the rosin and what you're putting also inside. Because so long we saw that we are putting wax, but you can put any kind of chemicals to make what you want. They were now it's a long time I don't see that, but when I was 14, 15 in Europe, they were pretty fancy, the rosin with golden or silver pieces in suspension inside. I mean, yes, it's like when they are telling you, yeah, rucola is helping you to live longer. Yes, if you're eating 6 kilos of rucola per day, it's more or less the same stuff. There is a lot of commercial thing. Like, it's also correct to be. I don't want to just make a stigma out of the. Again, I don't want to do the hippie guy who's living in the mountains covered with leathers and furs. So, but basically, it's this. We have to think that all the different kind of rosin we have is because they were just putting some chemicals inside, or they were cooking in a different way, and so on. For me, if you ask me, also to have a rosin that is too soft, so that melts too easily, is not a good thing, because you cannot distribute properly on the string. And this could be actually affected also by the temperature, because every time there is a famous luthier here in the French side of Switzerland, Nick knows really well, because he had a piece of this rosin that he's doing an extremely soft rosin. And with many people, I also talked with other professors in Mozarteum, they told me, yeah, I'm not really happy, because every time that is more than 25 degrees, it just melts down and it's just impossible to use. So this is the thing.
Thank you, Francesco. That's fascinating. I'm going to quickly jump back to the second part of Todd's comment. It's maybe this, so to say, he talks about in the last part, he talks about using historical rosins for early music versus modern symphonic music. And we have things in the end of the 19th century, but in the 20th century, we have the commercialization and the changes that we see in the rosin making. So is there a historical precedent for maybe
when they change?
Yeah, is there a moment when they change? And the second part, a validity to use like a 20th century formula for the rosin making for Stravinsky or some sort of 20th century music?
Well, in the small research that they made, if you are looking on the website of the main companies that are producing rosin, all of them, all these companies were funded in the second half of the 19th century. So when the industrialization of the turpentine reached some levels that they were justifying the transport from a more local or house production to an industrial production. Honestly, I don't think so. I think it's like a little bit like the gut strings. If we think that they were using gut strings till the First World War, and someone also after the First World War, and they stopped to use it because they need the gut to sew the militaries. I don't think that in this case would make sense to talk about historical rosin. If you ask me, there are rosin that works and rosin that don't work. Sorry. It's a lot coming from the taste, probably. If we are used to play in a certain way, probably a too sticky rosin will not be good. So a rosin really, really natural that's coming from the ancient method. Of course, with gut strings, we need to have a little bit more grip. So something that is more greasy, more sticky, it will help us a lot. What is interesting is to find a rosin that is not only sticky, but how does it grab, how does stick the string, let's say, because it doesn't, otherwise we were just gonna put glue. I mean, it would be the same. I wouldn't do this difference here right now. I have also modern players. They are playing in orchestra, in good orchestras, and they are using this historical rosin, the rosin that I'm producing, and they are extremely happy. I also find people that were not happy because they are saying, yeah, it's extremely good, but I don't feel completely under control. There was always something that it was not exactly working. I think that we shouldn't worry too much, honestly, about this kind of topic. Otherwise, we should also probably dress properly with heels on the shoes and so on. But it's a good question. It's something that we have to think about. Yeah.
I will just say I once, for my own Gamba playing, I took some dress shoes.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
and
I saw them.
I had someone, a shoemaker, put in heels like from this Christopher Simpson Division vial, and it did make a huge difference in the posture and everything. So maybe there is some historical costume or
Dressing,
clothing,
yeah.
dressing. Yeah, maybe there is some validity to that.
No, I mean, I would like to say it's interesting if we are doing. I was talking with someone before the beginning. We have probably to decide what to do if we want to do some academic research. So we just want to go really, really deeply in these kind of things. Then we can like try to dress properly, to have all the things made in the right way, all the instruments made correctly, and so on. But probably it's something that should stay inside the wall of the university because the audience wouldn't enjoy that. Probably we wouldn't either. In this world, in the end, we are in the entertainer. We are trying to make entertaining, to rediscover ancient music in a proper way, not as it was played 50, 60 years ago. Still, we have to produce something that the audience will and ourselves would enjoy. So if for you it's working better, modern rosin made with oil and whales, it's fine.
Thank you, Francesco. This was incredibly fascinating, and thank you everyone who's stayed. Like I said, this will be online. It has a lot of rewatch value. There's so much information and sources and things to take in. Will be absolutely a great resource. I'm not sure yet if it'll be on the Society's website or on YouTube, but either way, it'll be made available for everyone. Are there any other last minute questions that we want to sneak in before we wrap it up?
I will try not to be logoroic. So.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to just say we have our next presentation May 26th. The topic will be female gambists from the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries Europe. It'll be really fascinating just like this one, I would like to invite all members of the society. And like I said, May 26th, 1 p.m. We have the calendar is online. The one after we take a break for the summer. Oh, no, sorry. We have then one in June. Todd will be lecturing, and that information on that will also be coming out. So stay tuned, check your emails. And once again, thank you so much, Francesco. Thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you for the invitation. I was really, really happy. I hope you enjoyed. You are not too bored. And see you next time, hopefully, maybe in the US. Would be great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the attendance.